And just like that, we're back. Welcome, everyone. This is officially the beginning, the first episode, season 2, episode 1 of Her Healing Hour, the podcast. And I am your host, Lisa, also known as the AlkaliYogi. So you can find this podcast now not only on YouTube, but as always on Anchor and all these streaming platforms that are supported by Anchor, including Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc., etc. So wherever you're tuning in from, welcome back. It's great to be back. How have you been? I know it's been a really, really long time. I can't tell you how many times I have wanted to just jump back in and sort of fill you guys in, on everything that's happened in the last, oh man, it's been close to a year and a half, hasn't it, since we last caught up together on this here podcast. Not quite a year and a half, but certainly inching towards that. And a lot has happened in that time. Initially, I was only going to take a few weeks off to go and travel. I ended up going to Kenya in the summer of 2021, which was wonderful, truly the trip of a lifetime, with a short stop in Doha in Qatar, which I should have done a rant about, actually. Not because Doha and Qatar wasn't great, but getting out of the airport was nothing short of a nightmare. However, the city itself, that I got to see, the little that we got to see after our 6.5-hour delay at the airport, was quite lovely. So Doha, for what I gathered, once outside the airport, was amazing. Kenya, again, a trip of a lifetime, game changer, and a place that I'm really excited about returning to. Matter of fact, if you have been keeping up with my YouTube channel, then you have actually seen footage from my trip to Kenya. What else can I tell you about the last year and a bit? Like all of you all, life has been filled with ups and downs. I have suffered and experienced tremendous loss, the kind of loss that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But that happens to everyone. So that is life, isn't it? At the same time, I've also found myself gaining a lot. I've been very blessed in other areas. In some areas, I've lost people that are very dear to me. And in other areas, I have gained a life partner. So I am now officially a Mrs. And I have actually moved back to the United States. The last time we spoke and caught up, I was in the Calgary, Canada area, and now I'm in the DMV area. Speaking of Calgary, I'm happy to say that Calgary, I have finally made peace with you. This has been a city that I have had a very tumultuous relationship with. It was the city that my family immigrated to when we left Italy and moved over to this side of the pond. And whilst I was growing up in Calgary, it was very much well, it still is very much a conservative city, which I don't necessarily have issue with, but we'll say that it was limited in terms of the exposure that you would get to different groups of people and different belief systems and cultures, foods, and all the rest of that. But in the time that I left Calgary and Canada to move on to London, where I spent several years, and then on to New York, where I spent many more years, Calgary has changed. It's kind of grown up. And I can say that 2021 was a good year in Calgary, that my experience there opened my eyes to how the city has evolved and grown. And now there are people literally from every corner of the planet. You see a lot of diversity in culture. You also see a really blossoming and burgeoning, if you will, of cuisine and artisanal foods that are locally made in smaller batches, that with ingredients that have been locally sourced. So from the little bit of time that I have sort of reintroduced myself to that city, given that I was only there for 2021 and now I'm actually back in the United States. I've really been proud to see Calgary and to call myself even a Calgarian for the first time. See Calgary sort of be at the forefront of this whole movement of like artistry and the culinary arts, and procuring really great, finely sourced ingredients, and seeing even like the restaurateurs being not just plant-based or multicultural, but also introducing new concepts as far as like how to share equity with employees. So for instance, this one restaurant that I was living very close to in the downtown area, their name escapes me right now, but it's a plant-based restaurant, which I've been meaning to go to for a very long time. It's actually a co-op. So they have the same sort of like business model, as similar as can be to an airline, given that it's a restaurant, as you know, you could possibly bridge, I suppose, meaning that not unlike WestJet, which is also headquartered in Calgary. For a lot of people that don't know that, WestJet's headquarters are actually in Calgary, Alberta. WestJet is the second largest airline in Canada and a company that I worked for several years, actually, in a different life. But with WestJet, when I was working with them anyways, you were part owner. And to see now restaurants, at least this one restaurant that was literally like underneath the building that I was living in the downtown area, be also sort of like a co-op, so that the employees were co-shareholders, co-owners of the establishment. Those kinds of things are really exciting to me because it's innovative, it's forward thinking, it's progressive, and it's more equitable, isn't it? Like when you feel like you are a part owner in something, you treat it differently. And I've always sort of taken that approach anyways, that you should treat the business that you are working for or with as if it were your own, because that might give you an opportunity to learn. You could sort of see it as like an apprenticeship, learn how to do it well, so that if and when you decide to branch out on your own, you can say that you have, treated and grown a business to the best of your ability, have worn multiple hats, etc. So really exciting stuff. Oh, what is the name of that restaurant? Listen, when it comes to me, I'll definitely link it in the description box, but great restaurant from what I could tell. I ordered a couple of things there. I didn't get a chance to actually sit down and have an enjoyable meal at the restaurant because for the majority of 2021, Calgary was under lockdown. No cap, as the kiddos would say. Like literally, we were not able to gather in parks, to meet at each other's homes. All sorts of things were happening at the time that was sort of encouraging people telling on each other, for the sake of keeping everyone isolated, alone, for everyone's safety. I have thoughts on that. I won't get into it today because that's not what today's episode is about. It's a little bit of catch up, and then I want to get into sort of a topic, which you may have noticed in the title of today's podcast, which is Stop Working Out Now to Get Healthy. But first, a little bit more to catch up on. So in this year, 2022, I ended up moving back to the United States at the top of this year. I'm in the DMV area now. It is where I now live with my now husband. And him and I together also took a wonderful trip to Nigeria in the spring of 2022. It was, again, a trip of a lifetime. Just like Kenya, it was a game changer, paradigm shifter. I cannot express enough gratitude over the blessings and opportunities that have been afforded me, even during this time in the world where it is very uncertain. There's a lot of worry. There has been a lot of trauma that has been sort of imposed over the last 2 years. And a lot of people just simply don't even have the finances or couldn't even fathom taking a trip right now. So I completely understand that. my financial situation is also in vast need of improvement. Let me just say, so I'm not sitting here in a position where I'm doing much better than many others. I'm really not. I'm really here also trying to rebuild. Um, I was afforded this amazing opportunity to go to Nigeria. It was for a wedding. And although I've not posted it up on my individual channel, AlkaliYogi, you can see the trip that we took together on my other channel with my now husband, Living Ishe. And the title or the name to our joint channel is Meet to Castaigne Jones. And I'll also add that to the description box. So if any of you are interested in seeing any of our sort of outings and our adventures abroad and even domestically, you can catch up a bit with me there. So I haven't been completely away from creating all content. I've just not been as diligent with the podcast as I needed to be, but I'm here now. On the education front, I've continued on with my studies and I will continue to. I officially enrolled at the Czech Institute in the fall of last year, an academy, Czech Institute Academy student. And I've actually just completed my full year in IMS training. So I'm officially a Czech practitioner, level 1, and holistic lifestyle coach, level 2, pending my final exam, which will come soon. I just wrote my exam for my IMS level 1 after 12 months of intense coursework, where we actually also got to meet our faculty and complete sort of this 1 year of work that we've been doing online in person at the Czech Institute, which was truly a full circle moment for me. And that you can actually already see on this channel. I did post about the San Diego vlog. And that was at my time at the Czech Institute in August of this year. It was an amazing trip for me, especially because the Czech Institute and Paul Chek are not new to me. I've known about them for nearly 20 years, actually. Almost 20 years ago during my time in London, where I met my mentor, my first mentor, who was also a Czech practitioner. That is kind of how I was introduced to this whole concept of holistic lifestyle and eating. And through that mentor, my entire life changed. It was a very slow and progressive process, which is now I understand it was done intentionally and by design, because a lifestyle like this takes a really long time to acclimate to, because there are so many things that you have to be prepared to let go of first. There are a lot of stories, a lot of veils that sort of come down, a lot of smoke and mirrors that get cleared. And you get to see the world through more clear vision, I believe. I guess one way to say it is once you move into holistic wellness and you understand even just the corruption that takes place in the food world, big food, and how the state and the government sort of work together to corrupt that industry. And then when you kind of progress from big food to like big pharma, and again, how the state is involved in that and how they work together, it's a huge unveiling of sorts. And all of the things that you believe to be real, your reality, for lack of a better term, comes crumbling down. And so for that reason, now I understand why everything had to be done sort of incrementally over time. And because of that, I've even given myself grace for not going and sort of becoming a student at the Czech Institute in a formal fashion much earlier on. I needed to sort of very slowly see it for myself, just how much fantasy we sort of live in. I guess maybe a better word than fantasy would be matrix that we live in. So for me, the coming into wellness was my first introduction to really seeing just how corrupt, colluded, and just unreal the world that we live in has sort of been our realities and how they've been presented to us. Um, but, the flip side and the bonus side to all of that is that once you accept that, you kind of then find yourself on a more solid footing, if you will, and you kind of overstand over time how to best navigate given the veneers now are off and your eyes have been opened. And even in saying this, I have to say, guys, that there are no absolutes, right? Sometimes I even have to like take pause and ask myself, well, is it really this corrupt or is this just another story that I have bought into? You know, are there really these corporate interests that take precedent over every layperson and the citizens who have, who actually go through the trouble of voting and supporting these politicians and putting them, into a position of power? Is it really as simple as, well, once we put them in power, they are then easily bought and paid for by corporate interests and then, sort of lobby just for the interests of these big corporations? Or is there really any consideration for us? Or rather, is there any consideration for us? Or is there just no consideration? Like sometimes I have to stop and pause and ask myself, have I bought into another sort of matrix? Is it as bad as I now believe it to be? Or is there some truth to what I've now been privy to and exposed to, plus the story that I was told growing up and indoctrinated into by the school and educational system? Or does the truth lie somewhere in the middle? So I'm also aware of the fact that I don't wish to jump from one extreme of having been extremely indoctrinated over all the way over here to then coming all the way here, because I am an Aries and I feel like I am quite susceptible to just kind of being black or white, so sort of being like really either naive and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and oh my gosh, everything is so great, to like, oh my gosh, everything is so dark and we really have to fend for ourselves. And truth be told, the last 2.5 years have kind of signaled more to what I'm believing is the actual reality of like, yeah, it's all about corporate interests and nobody's really working on our behalf. But, I also, again, intuitively know that the universe always seeks balance. So for as much corruption as I seemingly have evidence for over here, and just like, you know, um, just a loss of sort of faith in our officials and the people that are supposed to be working for us. Um, I also understand that even when I don't see a recalibration of sorts, because maybe it hasn't been shown to me or I'm just not paying attention, that the universe is constantly recalibrating, right? Because it has to. So, although it seems like these guys over here are winning and there's been a massive transfer of wealth, massive transfer of sort of rights and liberties that have been taken away from the everyday citizen and given to big state, which really seemingly is serving just corporate interests these days anyways. It probably has been for a long time. There has to be some element of something else happening, like things kind of recalibrating over on this side so that people are still able to find some self-sufficiency, some sustainability, some opportunity to feed themselves and their families, despite what these guys are trying to do over here. Look at me doing hand puppets. I don't know why I'm doing hand puppets, guys. Those of you who are not seeing the visuals, forgive me. I'm being very chatty with my hands and expressions because, well, if you didn't know, I am born and raised in Italy, and I do believe it is part of our language to speak with our hands. And I'm just an expressive person. So that's what's happening there. But if you're not getting the visuals for this, fear not. Those of you on the audio end only, you're getting the pertinent information, which is there's always a seesaw-like effect happening on the earth. And so again, I do believe that something is being recalibrated in real time, and it will expose itself to us as and when she sees fit. So what else do I want to fill you guys in on? So now we find ourselves in October of 2022. And if I'm not mistaken, today is the 11th. Yes, because yesterday was Canadian Thanksgiving. And for those of you that celebrate Columbus Day, it was also Columbus Day tomorrow, yesterday. So that means that if memory serves me right, I am relaunching season 2 on the 11th day of the 10th month and on the first season of Her Healing Hour, the podcast. If I'm not mistaken, I went live with you guys for the first time on the 11th of January, 2021. So something to be said maybe for the number 11, which when added together equals 2, which 2 means me and you back together again. Coming back into the middle so that we can converse, we can share, we can form alliances, we can create more sustainability and less dependence on corporations and big states. And instead, we can come back to more of a sense of community, which is, also one of my hopes is that we can grow a community here together where we can help each other, barter systems from one another, find ways to support, uplift, eat together, grow together, and ultimately free ourselves together from what I believe is a time that's creating more dependence on corporations and big state. Not that there's a huge difference in my eyes now between big corporations and big state, but I'm sure we'll get into that as the season progresses. I think that coming back to sort of that village feel and having a tribe and having a village is certainly very, very important. So however we can do that, that's what I'm hoping this platform helps us to sort of cultivate together, right? Because I certainly can't do it alone. But as I'm here and as I'm sharing holistic tips with you guys, and as the world continues to sort of navigate towards this place of, again, making the wealthy more wealthy and the have-nots have lesser. And as everything is kind of being digitalized at a very rapid pace, and we're seeing businesses not wanting to accept cash anymore and everything going through card, which has a lot of negative consequences, whether all of you see it or not, including the opportunity for corporations and government to halt your ability to access money if you're not complying with whatever policies and regulations they might be enforcing that may not be even policies and regulations that are even brought to the floor for the people, but brought literally to the floor to serve the interests of corporations. So again, just being aware of what's happening in the world at large, and wanting to support the ability to still procure and buy and eat, as well as, offer services and all the rest of that. Let's chat about how I can be of service to you with my skill sets, and equally how you can be of service to me. I would love to learn more about how to grow food. Perhaps you would like to know more about holistic health. I would like to know a lot more about history. Perhaps you're interested in economics. I'm also an economist by trade, so we could chat about that. So how we could barter. Maybe you'd be interested in learning one of the languages I know. I'm certain I could benefit from learning some of the languages you all know out there, because again, languages gives you access to spaces. It also helps to provide context, I think, in a lot of situations, and it helps to bridge the gap, and it's bringing us together as a people. And really the only way that we're going to survive this time, if you have an idea of what's happening, and if you listen to my first season, where I was sometimes not so subtly trying to give you the what I believe the roadmap to where we're going, then you have, like me, perhaps have that desire to, come together and figure out solutions for how we can evolve, survive, and more importantly, thrive during times like this, right? Because surviving itself is not enough, is it? We need to also flourish, right? And that's what we were designed to do. So otherwise, we're kept in our fight flight, which is just a survival mechanism. And that's no way to be healthy, be happy, or joyous, and also to multiply, to grow. So I've chatted your ear off now already for 20 plus minutes. And I believe I've caught you up without going into a great deal of detail. Some of the things that I have been sort of living, I guess you could say, in, well, how many months has it been? Let's see. We got off in June of 2021. So July, August, September. So it was about a year and 3 months. So coming up to a year and a half. It actually feels like it's been longer since I've chatted with you all, to be honest with you. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be back for a number of reasons. Number one, because I hope that I'm providing a service that is a benefit to you all and something that you can learn from, so that in turn you can share with me what your strengths are, and I too can benefit from your wisdom. But also because it's a very sort of for me, I'm in a place of transition, right? Being now in an area where I don't have a network. I'm also coming to you in a space of vulnerability, really wanting to create a tribe and a sisterhood here. So I'm hoping that this podcast will also help me to find members of, a new sisterhood, that I can add to sisterhoods that I already have in great cities like London and New York. I'm very fortunate and blessed in that way. Now I'm in the DMV, so looking to create a sisterhood here, a tribe, if you will, of women that I can travel with, that I can have coffee with, that I can share ideas with, and that I can learn from and grow with, because everyone needs a village. I have a husband and he's amazing. He's incredibly supportive, and I couldn't ask for more. I also realize that I can't put all of my needs on him. He's an amazing provider. He supports anything that I do. He's made it so that I could spend the last year just focused on my studies and completing my IMS level 1 training. So I couldn't ask for more. What I'm yearning for now is some girl time, So I've actually, believe it or not, guys, downloaded an app also to help me with this. But let me know what you think are apps that are great for meeting, new friends on. I hear that this is what we have to do in these here times, right? So I've heard other people speak on going on apps to find a new friend group, or to add to their friend group, right? To just meet new people who have similar interests and want to just, get together, hang out, and socialize. So I've done that. I've downloaded an app. I never thought I'd be swiping left or right again, but I am. This time, though, I'm in the market for something completely different, not shopping for a life partner or a spouse. I'm very much looking for friends, that can show me the DMV and what it's about, give me some history on the DMV and what it's about, because neither my husband or I are from this area, although he's been living here now for, I think, a little over a decade, and has done a great job of actually informing himself and learning about the DMV, and certainly has taken me around. And I just want to add to that. So, because I'll be here for the foreseeable future, but not indefinitely, because we do have plans to leave the West. Okay. And if you have checked out any of our vlogs in Kenya or Nigeria, you will understand why the West is not where we've chosen to sort of, grow into our golden years, if you will. All right. So time to get into today's topic. Let me take a quick sip of my hot cocoa. I mean, it is a fairly warm October day, but it's never too soon, if you ask the AlkaliYogi, for a cup of hot cocoa to just soothe the soul. Delicious. All right, so gym time. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been also learning, and you'll understand where I'm coming to you from when it comes to training and why I think you should stop, sis or bro, right now in order to get healthy. Now, this doesn't apply to everyone. Over the last year, I have been studying IMS, which is Integrated Movement Science. Back in the day, the Czech Institute used to call this corrective exercise coaching, corrective and holistic exercise coaching, which it still does because it's actually an acronym for Czech, CHEK, corrective holistic exercise kinesiology. So I am now, in addition to being a holistic lifestyle coach, when I say to you that I'm also a Czech practitioner, it's because now I have studied and am certified and licensed in scientific program design. And I'm able to do that because now I'm able to assess the body. I have done my course in scientific core training, scientific back training, and scientific program design, which have all taught me how to analyze and assess the body. Because as Paul Chek says, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. So one of the primary differences between Czech practitioners who are more corrective and holistic exercise coaches instead of personal trainers is that we work with you once we've done a full assessment on you. We consider your physiological load through questionnaires that have been curated and designed to determine what your physiological stress is now, because physiological stress matters, right? So, for instance, are you stressed over your career? Are you enjoying your career? Do you have financial worries? Are you currently experiencing relationship problems, maybe in your friendship group or your romantic relationship? How are you getting on with whomever you believe is your creator, meaning have you forged that relationship? Are you in tune? Do you spend time to reflect and connect to the one source, whomever and whatever that might be for you? Do you get enough movement in throughout the day? How is your nutrition? Because if you're eating rubbish, then what you put in is what you're going to get out in terms of your health, right? So if you're not nourishing yourself, then you're to put it bluntly, toxifying yourself. Full stop. There is no real in between. So all of these things kind of make up your physiological load. And also another Czechism would be what client walks into the gym and leaves their personal and professional stress at the door. No one. We're humans, right? So whatever we're carrying, kind of we carry with us, right? If I'm stressed out and I'm going to Bali, but I'm stressed out, I'm probably not going to enjoy Bali to my fullest abilities, because whatever I'm carrying here and here is traveling with me. So we consider all of these things. And then we actually, once we've assessed that and we know sort of whether you're in the green, the yellow or amber or red, we can determine what we can add to your plate, or if we need to remove stressors, right? Because if you're in the green, it means you're doing great. You're in a state of probably flow in your life. Things are going relatively well. So we can absolutely train you intensely. You have the energy, the chi, and the life force to support that. If you're in the amber or yellow, already we're taking caution. And we might be considering actually taking a few things off of your plate in order to help you sleep better or breathe better or calm your mind, before we would consider tearing your tissues and your muscles apart, which is exactly what training does to you, because it is a catabolic force of breaking down in order to build up, right? That's what training is. Working out, if you will. If you're in the red as Czech practitioners, you're not training. We're not doing any resistance training. And that is one of the things that really sets us apart. But in addition to that, we also do length tension assessment, right? So we look for the muscles that are too tight and too weak, and so that we can address them and get them stronger for you. We look at the muscles that are too long. Sorry, I meant to say tight and short is what I meant to say. So we look at your muscles in the length tension assessments. We look at the muscles which are too tight and too short, and we know that we need to lengthen them and stretch them. Okay. We also have to look at the muscles in the body currently that are too long and weak. And we know that we have to strengthen them. So we wouldn't stretch those muscles because they're already too long and weak. We have to strengthen them. The muscles that are too tight and too short, those need the stretching. So again, that's part of what we bring to you as Trek practitioners. It's not about you telling us, well, I want a six pack and I want to have arms like so and so. And no, because we have to look at beneath the surface your overall wellness and what your musculoskeletal health, right? Your posture is like, your visceral health, your hormonal health. Because when everything is as it's supposed to to be, you're going to look amazing. Whatever your best is, you're going to naturally look that way because we're working from the inside out. That's why we don't sort of take your requests of like, well, I want to really get, a firm booty like such and such. And I want you to, what's the word I'm looking for? To sculpt my waist, so it's like so-and-so is like, that's not health. Health is we're going to build you from the inside out, from the ground up. But we first have to understand where you are today and what you're bringing in terms of the health that you're bringing to us today, your physiological load today, what injuries you're bringing to us today. And we kind of go based on that. So again, we assess, we don't guess, and then we start to work with you, which is why I said to you, the topic of today's podcast is stop working out to get healthy now. If you are somebody who is already highly stressed out and anxious, which over the last 2 years, I imagine a lot more people have kind of shifted out of green and yellow into that red zone, right? Especially if, again, you have an idea of what's going on out here and what they're trying to do. They being people that we'll address at a different time. So if you have any kind of sort of sense or intuition or even interest in what's really happening outside of what the media is telling you, then you may have inadvertently shifted into the red zone, which means that you are stressed out. And perhaps your sleep has been affected by that, or your digestion, right? Because everything will be impacted when you are under a great deal of stress. Your skin might break out. You might be craving more sugar and carbohydrates, less movement, et cetera, et cetera. This is not a person that then needs to be in the gym adding more cortisol, because that's what training does to you, is it releases the cortisol hormone to a body that's already flooded in cortisol. And there are many long-term effects of having too much cortisol in the body, such as the inability to sleep, anxiety, constipation, digestive issues, low libido, sometimes infertility, right? And it goes on and on and on. Skin rashes, just an overall decay of the body. Slowly, you start to age more quickly. So these are the reasons why, as Trek practitioners, if you're already in that red zone, which means that you already have way too much cortisol in your body and running through you, the last thing you need, sis or bro, is to be out there in the gym training hard. What you need is to be not training out or working out, but training in. Meaning, how do you switch your body from being in a catabolic state, because cortisol, again, breaks down tissue and muscles in order to build up. But if you're constantly in the red zone, you're not building up, you're just constantly deteriorating, right? You're just eating up tissues, eating up muscles, because that's what the presence of cortisol in the body long-term will do to you. So you want to balance that out by actually training in, going inward, cultivating energy through breath, Let's take another deep inhalation through big belly breath. And how do you do that? Well, you can work through your breath doing breath exercises that you might find on YouTube, for instance. Wim Hof is a great one. I do it almost every morning. I quite enjoy it. Yoga If you've taken a yoga class, you know that we are always on you about breath. Yoga is, in fact, meant to be one breath for one movement, right? So that's what vinyasa is, flowing with breath, movement with breath. Yoga is a moving meditation. Meditation, also a great opportunity to work on bringing breath in, because whereas working out, again, is very yang, meaning that, again, it's more masculine in its energy. It is destructive, which is a good thing. When I say destructive, I don't mean that it's a negative thing, because you need yang and yin, but you need balance, right? So it's destructive. The breath, on the other hand, is reproductive. It sort of helps you to build, right? It renourishes, it replenishes, it gives you energy, life force, clarity. That's more yin, right? So again, finding that balance. Tai Chi, Qigong, long walks in the park, or what have you, going to the beach, any of these things are going to help you build yourself up again, give you the energy, the clarity, the peace of mind, so that you can declutter your mind and figure out what it is that you need to do for self in this time and going forward. Going to the gym, if you're already stressed out, is only going to do more damage than good. I want to just give you some more talking points and get a little bit more specific. So we've talked about cortisol. This is a hormone. It's in the glucocorticoid hormone family, which are necessary. So these are sort of more sugar like hormones, right? Because they have to give you energy. So that's the opposite of like melatonin, which would help you to come down at night. When you overstand, right, how it feels to have too much cortisol in the body, which will also create, by the way, inflammation of the organs, then you'll be very aware of when you need to be resting or doing gentle, more kinder things, modes of movement, if you will, modalities of movement that will be less destructive on the body. And again, sort of more about like lengthening breath, lengthening torso, lengthening muscles, and releasing the stress that lives in the, again, the connective tissue, the joints, deep down in the face, like the tonic muscles, which are the stabilizer muscles, which oftentimes when you're doing a lot of yang movements, you're not addressing the stabilizers, the muscles that actually hold you upright. So getting into different modalities of movement will specifically help you target those muscles, which are often not thought of because they're not the muscles that are sort of the ones that give us the appearance of being toned and cut and jacked up, so to speak, the vanity muscles, if you will. Those tend to be a little bit more phasic. Another thing that we do as chart practitioners is we teach you how to target those smaller muscles. Because those muscles oftentimes don't get the attention that they need, there is a lot of emotion there, a lot of stress there, and getting to those muscles will help to release a lot of stuff up here, whether you know it or not, and in here, right? So I'm pointing to the head and to the heart. So releasing things that are caught in the body, because the body is a recorder. If you listen to my season 1, episode 1 on hydration, if you've read the book, You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty, or Hidden Messages in Water, you overstand and understand that water is a recorder. And if you overstand that, and you overstand that the body is 70% of water, the body mimicking the universe and everything in the universe being primarily made up of H2O, then you know that actually everything is a recorder. Shoot, this crystal right here is a recorder, right? Because it has water. Everything is constantly recording information, which is why everything needs time to release and cleanse and detoxify, because everything summates. All stress summates in the body. It's no different with cortisol. It's no different with our thoughts, right? If we don't clear these things out, the cortisol, the negative thoughts, the nutrition, or lack thereof, because we're consuming whatever, all of that summates over time. So you have to, like you need to clear out your crystals, you clean out your body. And sometimes that means you go to a sauna. And sometimes that might mean you take a yin class, a yin yoga class. And other times it might mean doing some Tai Chi in the park barefoot. These are all forms of self-care and of putting something back in the body that is just as good, if not better than going to the gym and training. Again, it all just depends on where you are at today. Overstanding that is important, and not a lot of PTs that I know of out there, or gyms, because not to single out any PTs necessarily or gyms, but I don't know of a lot of professionals in quote unquote wellness or exercise that have these considerations and that are looking at the entire picture, which is what makes us holistic practitioners, right? Is because we look at everything. We don't, again, we don't just take your request of, well, I really want to chisel my tone and tone my abs. I really want to chisel down on my waist. I mean, that again comes naturally when you're healthy. The other thing is, if you are in a space where you can train and you can be at the gym, how long should you be at the gym? A pause for a delicious sip. Well, for starters, you definitely don't need to be in the gym for more than an hour, less than an hour, if anything. And the reason for that is because, again, how much cortisol do you need to be adding to your body? I mean, truthfully, if you are training correctly for your body and your goals and for your health and wellness, right? Hopefully with someone who is also specialized in this field, if it's not a Czech practitioner and someone else who's highly specialized, then you should be adequately getting a great session in 30 to 45 minutes. And that total time under tension is going to be far beneath that when you consider it, right? When you consider that if you're doing resistance training, and by the way, I should have said this earlier, I'm actually not addressing endurance training. I'm very much speaking about, when I say stop working out now to get healthy or to get healthier, I'm specifically referring to resistance training, which is a necessary portion of training to stay fit when you can handle it. So when it comes to resistance training, the time under tension is honestly not that great. You don't need a lot of time under tension if you understand this, if you studied the science, or if you're working with a trainer who has studied the science, like Czech practitioners have to, then you understand that a total of even like 6 to 12 minutes, 8 to 16 minutes of total time under tension for your muscles is more than adequate, more. And if you're telling yourself that you need to be at the gym because the first 15 or 20 minutes of your time at the gym are spent doing cardio, I hate to break it to you guys, but you're actually wasting your time. Because those first 15 to 20 minutes, if anything, should be spent on a mat stretching to warm up your muscles. I would welcome anyone who's watching and paying attention right now to tell me, because you should always question what I say. You should always do your own research, right? This is, after all, a conversation, even though currently it's sounding like a monologue. You should ask yourself, how does running or walking on a treadmill for 15 or 20 minutes, right, to help your respiration and to expand your breath, which is great, sure, expand your lung capacity, how does that actually benefit your triceps, your biceps, your quads, your glutes, your adductors, your hip flexors? These are the muscles that you're going to be working on, right, whilst training in resistance training. So you're actually not doing anything for those muscles if you're on the treadmill. The best way to quote unquote warm your body up, warm the muscles up, is to gently stretch them. Mobilize the joints, guys. That part right there. I'll repeat. Mobilize your joints and stretch the muscles that you're going to be working on. Stretch your pec minor and pec major muscles. Stretch your hamstrings if they need stretching. Get an assessment done if you're not sure, right? Not everyone needs to stretch their hamstrings. Some of you have really long and weak hamstrings, so they shouldn't be stretched, actually. And how else would you know that if you don't get a professional to sort of assess them? Unless you are, of course, a professional yourself or an elite athlete that's very in tune with your body, right? You want to work your quadriceps and your calves. Okay, But again, what is being on a treadmill? How does that prepare you for working on your calves and your quads? So again, just kind of bringing the common back into the common sense portion of things and realizing that it's always good to question everything. Everything should be everything that's told to you by big state, everything that's been told to you by media, everything that's being told to you by AlkaliYogi should always be questioned, because you simply won't know unless you've done a deep dive, taken an interest for yourself, because no one is going to have an interest in your well-being more than you. I can assure you that. And the government certainly does not. But I digress. So, so you don't need more than 30 or 45 minutes in the gym. You want a minimum 30 minutes of movement every single day, even on your quote unquote rest days. And even if that means taking a short walk or just getting on the mat and having giving yourself some gentle stretching, again, to loosen any tight or to lengthen any tight muscles, to release any tension in the joints, but also to lubricate those joints and to mobilize them. So you can do that daily without building a sweat. You don't need to raise your heartbeat in order to get some beneficial and healing movement into your body. The world famous strength coach, Charles Poliquin, actually says, if you're in the gym for longer than an hour, you're not training. You're making friends. I think that is hilarious. And I see that that's true as well, right? So, what are you going to the gym for? To make friends or to really come out with some benefits? So if you're really coming out to improve yourself, and according to what's the name? Charles Francis. He's the Olympic coach that trained Ben Johnson, the sprinter, right? He used to say that if you're not at the gym, and each time you're at the gym, if you're not improving your well, here it is right here, the 1 to 3% rule. If you cannot improve today's performance in the gym over your last workout by 1 to 3%, you don't belong in the gym. In fact, you're only working against yourself. That's a direct quote from him. And you're not going to be able to improve by 1 to 3% in the gym today if you're coming in as somebody who's in the red zone. You're stressed about your money. You're stressed about your career. You're stressed about your lover. You're stressed about whatever might be happening thanks to the World Economic Forum. I digress. If you're in that state, then you don't need to be in the gym. And in fact, if you were my client and came to me in that state, I would take you out for a walk. I'd say, let's just go for a walk today. Maybe we do a little bit of gentle stretching, but we're not training. I'm not putting you on any weights. That's not going to happen, because as a holistic practitioner and as a corrective and holistic exercise coach, I know not to train you when you're in a space that you cannot take get any advantage from it. In fact, I would just be adding stress to you. So, what else do I want to tell you guys? That ultimately, hiring a professional is always a good idea. And if you can't do it yourself, gather 2 or 3 friends. Maybe you guys could do it together as a group. I'm not saying you have to get I'm saying actually test you and asking important. That's why we have questionnaires. One is that, and I'll get into this more in another podcast rather, is how I've had 2 interactions very recently with hospitals here in the United States, first time. Questions were not being asked. Both of the times that I ended up in hospital, both times at an emergency, unfortunately, I, came face to face with doctors who were pleasant enough, but didn't ask me any questions about how I got there. Didn't ask me about what I had been eating. Had I been sleeping well? Was I under a great deal of, distress? In fact, the only question that really stood out that one of the nurses asked me was, was I safe at home, or was there a chance of, me being in harm's way at home, which I thought was very interesting because, I have a background where I have experienced that too. I'm not in that situation now, thankfully. But I could appreciate why that question needed to be asked. But the questions that I was actually anticipating and hoping I was going to get were, have you been sleeping well? Do you get enough movement? What's your hydration like? On that note, let me take a sip of water, yeah? Mm. So, how do you give someone care if you don't know how they got to the place that they're at? Both of those situations, both doctors were both very quick and happy to bring pencil or pen to pad and write out prescriptions for me instead of, asking the necessary questions to help us both get to the root of how I ended up in hospital. This is why I had recently posted something on my Instagram page that was actually a repost from another doctor, which alluded to, and you'll find it if you go to my Instagram page. I mean, you can see my handle is right there, where it says that basically, if you have a doctor that is not asking you about your nutrition, your hydration, your personal relationships, your personal stress, from a place of like, let us figure out so we can understand how you got here today, you should find a different hospital. I meant to say a different doctor. You should find a different doctor. And I stand by that. And I'm just grateful that I have as little information as I have, because I don't profess to be any kind of an expert here. I think one thing that I've learned over the past, year and a half or so, or 2 years that I've been studying with the CHEK Institute, because it's been about 2 years. I started in the spring of 2020, really, with my holistic lifestyle coaching level 1. What I've understood or am understanding is that the more I learn, the less I act. Like the more I'm in awe of how much mystery there is surrounding everything. There's so much that is so unknown, and we're trying to piece little things together, and some of it we're going to understand logically, and some of it we're going to understand intuitively. And then there's so much more, infinitely more, which we simply won't, which is nothing that we'll comprehend. But that doesn't negate us trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, trying to, draw the picture out as fully as we can so that we can step back, look at it, and then offer the appropriate help or recommendations to our clients, or in a doctor's case, patients. So I guess if I were to leave you with anything today, is that if you're training with a professional or working with a holistic lifestyle coach, or anyone who professes to care about your wellness, and their first response is to write your prescription, is find someone else. Find someone else to add to your team of experts or supporters for your journey, your path back to wellness and to whole. Find people who will ask you if your stool is smelly, if your bowel movements are at least 12 to 24 inches a day, every day. If you're in tune with the sleep-wake cycle, if you're getting up in the middle of the night, if you're breathing fully and diaphragmatically, what you're eating, of course, and when you're eating, because we're a system of systems, and everything is connected, and everything is also cause and consequence. So to not ask is to not get is not to even attempt to gather or overstand or want to truly correct whatever's going on. So on that note, I think I've chatted your ear off. We've done all right, yeah, for season 2, episode 1. I think we got a lot in there. But as always, I want you guys to email me or drop it in the comments if you're on YouTube. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what topics you'd like me to address. And let's get this season 2 underway. Anyways, happy to be back. Thank you for waiting for me. And until next time, guys, I'm going to sign out. Stay well, be well, and as always, one love. Bye.